You love coffee, right? The smell, the taste, the way it fuels your morning routine. But have you ever wondered how coffee became a sensation throughout Europe? Today, let's dive into a remarkable story that may just surprise you. How Vienna unwittingly became one of the key players in spreading coffee culture across the Western world. I promise, by the end of this, you'll never look at your coffee cup the same way again. Let's rewind back to 1683, a year that saw one of the most dramatic sieges in European history, the Siege of Vienna. On one side, the mighty Ottoman Empire. On the other side, a coalition of European forces determined to hold their ground. What's the connection with coffee, you ask? Sit tight. For 2 months, the Ottomans had laid siege to Vienna. The city's citizens were running out of supplies, and hope was wearing thin. The story of Vienna's survival is epic enough, but we're focusing on the aftermath, on something the retreating Ottoman forces left behind. You see, when the Ottomans abandoned their siege after suffering a crushing defeat, they left behind not only tents, weapons, and supplies, but also an enormous stash of unroasted coffee beans. Yes, coffee beans. At the time, coffee was already popular within the Ottoman Empire. However, much of Western Europe was still unfamiliar with it. In Vienna, as the city began to assess and distribute the abandoned spoils of war, rumors began to circulate about the mysterious beans. To many, they seemed strange and useless at best. Can you picture it? A group of people staring at sacks of coffee beans, scratching their heads. Nobody knew what to do with them. That is, until a man named Georg Franz Kolszycki stepped in. Who was Kolszycki? He was a Polish-born diplomat and spy who had worked for the Austrian forces during the siege. In fact, some accounts credit Kolszycki with a daring mission, sneaking through Ottoman lines to deliver a vital message from Vienna to the Allied armies. But that's a story for another time. Today, it's his relation to coffee we're talking about. Kolszycki, who had spent significant time in the Ottoman Empire, recognized the beans immediately and knew their value. You could say he was ahead of his time. While others saw them as just odd little seeds, he saw an opportunity. He petitioned the authorities to allow him to take the sacks of coffee as his prize for services rendered during the war. The request was granted, and Kolszycki soon set to work. Drawing upon the brewing techniques he had observed in the Ottoman Empire, he opened what is considered one of Vienna's first coffee houses. It was called the Blue Bottle. There, he introduced the people of Vienna to coffee, serving it in a way that eventually catered to European palates. Now, this wasn't the strong, unfiltered Turkish coffee served in the Ottoman Empire. According to some accounts, Kolszycki began sweetening the brew with sugar and mixing it with milk, creating a smoother flavor profile. Sound familiar? Yes, you might call him a pioneer of early lattes or cappuccinos. He might have even served you what we today call a flat white. Kolszycki's innovation transformed coffee from a foreign oddity into a sensation, ultimately laying the groundwork for Vienna's famous coffeehouse culture. Speaking of coffeehouse culture, let's take a quick moment to appreciate what this tradition became. For centuries, these establishments weren't just places to grab a cup of coffee. They were hubs of intellectual and artistic activity. Writers, philosophers, musicians, they all gathered in Vienna's coffee houses to exchange ideas and engage in debates. Mozart and Beethoven are said to have visited them, Freud too. And all of this stemmed essentially from a stash of coffee beans left behind on a battlefield. Now, there's a little debate among historians about how much credit Kolszycki should really get. Some argue his contributions have been embellished over the years, or that others may have played equal or supporting roles in popularizing coffee in Vienna. Still, he's widely remembered, so much so that a statue of him stands in Vienna today, commemorating his contributions. And coffee houses, well, they remain a cornerstone of Viennese life. They're more than places to drink coffee. They're cultural landmarks. The tradition has even been recognized by UNESCO as an integral part of Austria's intangible cultural heritage. Let me ask you something. When you drink coffee, Do you think about where your habits and rituals come from? Do you think about the people and events that shaped your experience? This story is a testament to how such small, random happenings, like an army leaving sacks of beans behind, can shape culture and history in ways we hardly realize. The next time you're sipping a cappuccino or a Viennese coffee, maybe with whipped cream and a sprinkling of cinnamon, take a moment to thank Vienna and the strange, twisty journey of history that gave you that cup.